Hello, LinkedIn and Facebook, and now YouTube. Happy New Year. My name is Fanny Dunagan, and I want to welcome you to Season 2 of the Fanny Dunagan Show. So welcome. Thank you for joining me today. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Fanny Dunagan, and every week I am going to come to you with amazing guests. And this year we are going to talk about creativity. Creativity is a skill that I think is very unique to every person. I think it's something that will never be replaced. And I've always wanted to explore the topic of creativity in a lot more detail. So over 2021, I'm going to talk all about creativity and how people create products and services and all kinds of cool things and what sparks their creativity and how they get ideas and all sorts of things like that across different industries, different services, different products. So I hope you'll join me this year every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central as I talk to guests about how they create. So welcome everyone. Happy New Year. I am so excited for this new season. And for those of you in the comments, let's see who is here. Welcome, welcome. Yolanda, oh, you're always there. I so appreciate your support. Yolanda from cloudy Frisco. Yes, it's a cloudy day in DFW. Welcome, Yolanda. And for those of you that see her in the comments, we have Ann Small. She is joining me this year as the community manager for my show. So she will help engage with the audience and tag folks that are being mentioned. And so please engage with her, connect with her. She's an amazing resource. And please join me in welcoming Ann in the comments below. So I want to remind everyone to please kind of take the time to share with people in the comments, because it is a community in the comments, and feel free to meet other people, introduce yourself, tell people what your specialty is, what your expertise is, and connect with people. I want to challenge each one of you to connect with 3 new people in the comments and build your network from here. After all, if you've heard the quote before, your net worth is equivalent to your network. So spend the time to meet people in the comments, and maybe you'll meet somebody new and create some new connections and collaborations. And I will continue my theme of doing a content tip of the week. As you know, I'm super passionate about content creation and videos and branding yourself, especially on LinkedIn. So this week's content tip of the week is all around collaboration. A lot of times people tell me they don't want to get on video alone and they feel nervous or they're not sure how to interact. And one of the secrets to that is to start with collaboration. You don't have to be alone. Do interviews, feature people that you respect, feature your partners, your collaborators, your vendors, your teammates, anybody that you've always wanted to chat with, and create a series or create a show or create a topic that has like 5 parts where you can feature different people and have it be like an interactive back and forth interview style kind of conversation. And what happens with that is when you collaborate, your audiences get to meet theirs, their audience gets to meet you, and it becomes this wonderful win-win situation where both of you can grow your audience, grow your community, and learn from each other. So whenever you can, do a collaboration, and that's a great way to start on content creation and doing videos. Collaborate to win-win. So a new thing that I'm doing is every week, I'm also going to come to you with a quote of the week. And for those of you that followed me last year, you know one of my favorite quotes is to shine your light, right? Shine your light, share your message. And this week, It just so happens that yesterday with the inauguration, we had this amazing woman. um, and she had this wonderful quote. She is the American laureate. What was her quote? She is the National Youth Poet Laureate. And so I want to come to you this week. My Shine Your Light quote of the week is all about there's always light if we're brave enough to see it and if we're brave enough to be it. And for those of you out there, I want to remind you that each one of you has a message to share. Each one of you has a voice that needs to be heard. And even if your audience is of one or of 10,000, your message deserves to be heard. And so be in contribution to your community, be in contribution to your organization, to your audience. And always remember that you have an important message to say. And I want all of you to remember to always shine your light and know that you are a light for someone. And that is my quote of the week. I hope that provides some inspiration to you to create content and to get out there and to share your message. Okay, without further ado, so excited. I am kicking off this year, as I mentioned earlier, on how we create. And this first episode that I'm launching 2021 with is with Mr. Brad McCormick. He is the principal of 10 Louder, past president of American Marketing Association, and adjunct professor of digital marketing at SMU. Brad, welcome to the Fanny Dunagan Show. How are you?
Thank you, Fanny. Happy New Year.
Happy
Thurs,
New
everybody.
Year. Yes, yes. I'm going to read your bio because it's an impressive bio. And for those of you that don't know him, he definitely connect with him. I'm going to pull up his LinkedIn feed while we're here. So look up Brad McCormick. He is a digital marketing strategist and principal at 10 Louder, a consulting firm helping companies of all sizes design more strategic, impactful marketing plans for their business. He is an agency veteran, so tons of marketing experience, having held leadership positions in public and private agencies in New York City, Austin, and Dallas. Over 2 decades of designing digital and integrated marketing programs and campaigns. And get this, these are some of his clients, from Lego to McDonald's to Samsung, Johnson & Johnson, CISO, Smokey the Bear. We'll have to talk about that one.
Smokey Bear. Not
Smokey the Bear.
Smokey Bear. We'll talk about that.
Yes. Indianapolis 500, U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And he also helps startups and SMBs. So for those of you out there that want to plan out your marketing strategy for 2021, you are not going to want to miss this episode. He also teaches at SMU, doing the digital marketing strategy and performance management course each semester. And he's also a Scrum Master and board member of the American Marketing Association, where you and I met, Brad.
Yes,
right?
Yes. I also say that I am a professional amateur because I by no means have all the answers. I'm still trying to figure this out. Things are moving so quickly. So I by no means have all the answers. I'm a professional amateur. I get paid to learn.
And that's why we have these conversations, so we can learn. And I think one of the greatest things we can do as human beings is this ability to learn and keep on growing. So Absolutely. I thought there was no better person, Brad, to talk to kick off 2021 all around creating marketing strategies. But tell me how you kind of got started. How did you get this passion for marketing? Like, where did this come from?
So one thing is I've always been interested in everything. I think I was one of those kids, what are you going to be when you grow up? What are you going to be when you grow up? And I wanted to be a bunch of things. But I knew I didn't want to be bored. I had this fear of growing up, of being an adult, and this birth, school, work, death, and you have to work a job for 40 years of your life and so forth. And I remember, I'm going to date myself, but probably in the early 80s, I saw a movie with Tom Hanks called Nothing in Common. And in that movie, Tom Hanks played an advertising executive. And I remember there was a scene where he's literally in his office throwing pencils up at the ceiling, trying to get them to stick, coming up with the ideas. And so from then on, I said I wanted to go into advertising. And then I think in school, I got a little jaded with advertising. I was like, I'm going to, my job is going to get people, I'm going to spend all of my time, my creativity, getting people to buy stuff they don't need. Like that's a great way to spend the rest of your life. But at school at UT, I was the proctor of the advertising lab. So I taught people how to use Photoshop and Illustrator, all that stuff. And then I moved to New York City in 1999 to follow my girlfriend, now wife, up there. I didn't have a job. I taught myself HTML. And literally the first job I got was for a circus. If anyone knows New York City, the Big Apple Circus, that was my first job. But I really wanted to go into digital, this whole like interactive thing. And so my wife knew someone that knew someone, and I got a job for a big agency. My first job was cleaning up the storage room.
Got to start somewhere.
yeah, very glamorous. But it was fascinating because like digital was this new territory that no one knew, and it's kind of the Wild West. And since I've been doing it, the passion I have is that marketing literally combines economics and psychology and technology, and obviously art and design, persuasion, corporate culture, and all this stuff all together every day. It's always changing. So I really enjoy it, and that's my passion for marketing.
Yeah. And it shows. Like every time I talk to you, I feel your enthusiasm for marketing. And I love it. I mean, but too often, Brad, like we have all these like misconceptions and like, misunderstandings around marketing. And, we were discussing like marketing myths, right?
Yes.
I think a lot of times like, oh, marketing's the same as sales, and marketing is just like ads, and it's just some, like what is your definition of marketing, and what are common myths that you hear?
I mean, there's a lot. Marketing is, it's a big word, it's like, everyone has their own definition. I mean, ultimately it's, how do you create demand for your product or service and build equity for your company? And what's interesting is it used to be, depending upon if you're B2B or B2C, you just had to make something. Like if you like made a hot dog, they were like the only hot dog at the grocery store and people would buy it. Or, in B2B, if you're the only supplier of a certain medical device, people would buy it. And because of, cost of production and so forth, there's just more competition for nearly every single category. There's more things to buy. Yeah, so much choice. And so how do you, even if you have the world's best product, how do you get people to know about it? I think that in a nutshell is marketing, but it's so much more than that. I think a myth of marketing is that marketing is advertising. It's not. And I think a big myth. So one thing I tell my clients is it's very, very, very easy to waste money in marketing. It's incredibly easy to waste money. And a lot of people think that marketing is just buying Facebook ads or buying Google ads. And if it was that simple, if marketing was as simple, or digital marketing was as simple as buying Facebook ads or Google ads, there'd be no bankruptcies, there'd be zero unemployment. Really, and everyone would be like driving around Teslas and so forth. So I ultimately think, and I told my class this, marketing is hard. And when I say marketing is hard, it is really hard. It's easy to buy ads on Facebook and Google and LinkedIn. I think it's really hard with a finite budget and finite resources to spend money in a way that creates valuable business outcomes over the long run, and do that day in and day out. It's incredibly difficult. And I think a lot of people misconstrue marketing activity. Like, so we're going to redesign our website, and we're going to do content marketing, with actually building demand. So that's just step one.
Absolutely.
A myth in marketing. I've got a million of these.
Well, another thing is over the years, like I was born in 1974. Okay, so people can do the math.
75. I was 75.
Right, and over the years, right, we've gone from newspaper ads to learning about brands from TV and commercials and all these kind of traditional ways. And then obviously over the last few years, we are now learning about brands from influencers and digital and all these social media platforms. And like, and it gets really confusing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how would you define, and what have you seen, across this progression from traditional all the way to these days, like digital marketing?
Well, I mean, I think one thing I'm passionate about is strategy. So in case you guys haven't noticed, the world is getting more complicated. The world's getting more complex. Marketing is getting more complex. Politics is getting more complex. Being a parent, Fanny and I just had a conversation, is getting more complex. But it doesn't mean it has to be complicated. And I make this distinction between complexity and something being complicated. And part of my passion is instilling strategy. And strategy is a way of simplifying all this complexity in the way to get you from point A to point B. But on your question, the best marketing in the world is word of mouth. And I think even that people are starting to be skeptical of. But at the end of the day, like and I know we'll talk about small businesses, medium business, and so forth, you have to have happy customers. Yeah. And I tell, and people's expectations, that's another thing about how complicated it is. People's expectations are getting higher and higher and higher. There's a famous book I teach in my class. I think it's called A Happy Customer Will Tell 5 People, and an unhappy customer will tell 500.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature. And if you're a hotel chain and they clean the room and they make the bed and someone checks in, no one's going to go to TripAdvisor saying, "Oh my God, the hotel room was clean. This is great," and so forth. Like that's the expectation. Yeah. But like if one thing's missing or there's a stain or something, they instantly go on to
we'll take a photo, post it.
Right. And so it's just like just running a business and trying to meet people's expectations is becoming harder and harder. And so a lot of marketing is not just about getting the customers. What's the shift is it's post-purchase. And it's as important what happens after people open the box. And that's Apple kind of revolutionized that, the CX of opening the box. That's equally as important as buying Facebook ads.
Wow. Do you consider that part of CX and customer experience, or do you think that's also a part of marketing?
I mean, I think marketing is a big, big word. I think Peter Drucker or someone said the purpose of a business is to create a customer. And then ultimately marketing is the act of creating customers. Now I'm also talking marketing from the big M. So that's product design, that's pricing, that's certainly promotion, that's place. It's interesting. We had the national president of the American Marketing Association come, and he kind of redefined all this stuff. And ultimately, it's not about product. Ultimately, what you're selling is people's time, and it's not about place. It's omni-channel. But I think marketing is ultimately how an organization creates value in the marketplace. That's marketing.
Ooh, wow! Lots to work with on that definition.
I mean, it's such a big subject. We could talk all day, Fanny.
Actually, I would love to hear from the audience, okay? In one sentence, what do you in the audience think marketing is? What is your definition of marketing? Let's try to do it in one sentence. Let me know in the comments below, and I would love to post that, and we can have a little discussion around that as well, Brad. Yeah. Even in the audience, Jason Hopper. Hey, Jason. Word of mouth can create opportunity. Absolutely. Yep. I mean, in a way, I guess word of mouth traditionally has now transitioned to influencer marketing, right? Like these influencers have built trust, right? So outside of our friends saying, "Hey, Fanny, this dentist is great. Go to this dentist," right? Because I trust my friend. Now, if I'm following an influencer around a certain shoes or fashion, and over time I trust their opinion, they have influence on me, and they have influence on me wanting to buy something, right?
Yeah, and what's interesting is that we're seeing a fragmentation in the culture, so everything's fragmented. So even influencer marketing, it used to be like you would want like Kim Kardashian or Kyle Jenner, or which is the one that did the. A couple of years ago, there's a Pepsi commercial, and there's one of the
it's Jenner, something Jenner, yeah,
right.
yeah.
And there was like lots of blowback.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing is like the rise of these micro influencers, and so it's less about having followers; it's more people that can authentically represent your brand.
Yes.
And influencer marketing, it used to be, oh, I'll pay 1 or 2 influencers and tell them what to say, and that's easy. Dude, now influencer marketing, you've got to like manage 10, 20, hundreds of influencers, all these micro influencers at scale. And that's another example of the complexity of marketing. I think if you have the right strategy, it doesn't have to be complicated, but yeah, word of mouth. But, at the end of the day, one of my passions is talking to customers and, understanding, insights. And I don't care if you're selling vodka or if you're selling an enterprise software system. If you ask someone, hey, why would you buy this? Or why would you consider this? Or why did you choose this brand? 9 times out of 10, it's always like someone told me to. Even before they go to Google, they'll say, yeah, my friend told me. And there's no escaping that. And that's ultimately marketing is like, how do you create a happy customer? That's what it is.
I love that. We're getting some definitions in here. Jason says marketing is branding. Mike Rochelle says marketing is about defining value for the customer. Chuck says promoting an image for a product or service or person. Rashida. Hey, Rashida. She's okay. Yeah. Great to see you
Rashida.
here.
Hey,
I was going to say something. Marketing is telling a story. Love it. Yes. Lawrence, marketing is building your brand. What do you think, Brad, of those? What resonates with you?
I mean, I think all that's true. I've got this like, I actually just posted this on LinkedIn. I think, so most people know strategy versus tactics. It's pretty simple. Strategy is a recipe and tactics are the ingredients. But like, what about strategy versus strategy? So you've got business strategy, you've got content strategy, you've got email strategy, you've got brand strategy, all this stuff. Yeah. So for my clients, we have like, it's called the strategy staircase. And you start off, in my opinion, with business strategy. And the thing about that is, I tell my class, you can have the world's best marketing and brand campaign, but if your business strategy is off, it won't be successful. So case in point, if you were doing marketing for Blockbuster Video 15 years ago or 10 years ago, and you had like influencers and Kim Kardashian and Kanye West and so forth, and all this amazing marketing, but because their business strategy was just off, they went out of business, right? So you always have to start with business strategy and understand how you're competing, how you're creating value. Then to me goes brand strategy. And I do see a distinction between brand and marketing strategy. Then you do market strategy. Market strategy derives from your brand strategy. Then you do channel strategy, which is how do you bring the marketing strategy to life through different channels, multi-channel world? How do you make that part, the whole grid of the parts? And then you go down to like tactical execution, which in and of itself, just the art of executing marketing plans is massive. And one of the things we do at Tim Louder, we don't spend that much time on marketing strategy. It's mostly getting a little marketing strategy and then testing the hell out of it, pushing it out into the marketplace. The other thing about branding is there's that Steve.
Actually, real quick, I just want to summarize what you said for people, because I think it's really important, because I know people tuned in this week to set their marketing strategy for the year. So I love this, right? You called it a strategy ladder, right?
Strategy staircase. It's like
strategy staircase.
If you think of like the parent and the child, like the grandfather is business strategy, and then business strategy has a baby called brand strategy. And then brand strategy has a baby called marketing strategy. Marketing strategy has babies called channel strategy. And then channel strategy is tactical execution.
Love it.
What's interesting is the larger the organization, the less those parts talk to each other. And I've worked in organizations, I've worked for organizations where the person that does organic search doesn't talk to the person that does paid search, or sales doesn't talk to Marketing, we've all been aware of that.
Yeah.
Our social media doesn't talk to IT that does the website.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by tactical execution, that increasingly it's less the marketing strategy and it's your organization's ability to actually execute it. And that's a big trend here. I've seen. So, but you have to know how all those things fit together before you,
definitely. And I did have a question I saw, like, what is the difference between marketing and sales? Real quick.
I would say
let's clear it up in the air. Yes.
I think, not less and less. One thing about me, I don't believe in either or. I believe in both. So, it's not nurture versus nature. It's both. I would even say it's not Democrat versus Republican. It's both. And I don't think it's marketing versus sales. It's both. If there's any difference, it's probably the funnel, and marketing is top of funnel, sales is the bottom of the funnel. But this us against them rivalry and organizations between marketing and sales, you've got to get rid of that. I've done digital transformation work, for clients, and literally there's this idea of the maturity index, and you'll look at a company's maturity almost like you're a toddler. And you guys are fighting with each other. Dude, you're supposed to go out and gain market share, and you won't share a PowerPoint. So I think there's more and more similarities than differences between marketing and sales. Ultimately, sales is responsible for closing the deal, but it needs to be a partnership. There needs to be, as you said, more collaboration. It's a big word.
Yeah. And moving forward, speaking of sales, right? A big part of sales is the ads that drive it, right? And tying in with your channel strategy, right? Some platforms are great for ads right now. From what I understand, Facebook is still great for ads. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then at the same time,
you mean paying money to Facebook? Yeah, they'll take your money all day. That's great. Facebook is great. You want to spend money? Just go to Facebook.
Go to Facebook. And at the same time, there's still some channels and platforms that have great organic reach, right?
Yep.
So as we kind of start to think about money and our dollars and what we're going to spend it on in 2021, where should we direct our attention? On things that we pay, like paid ads, or should we still pursue things that have great organic reach?
I mean, great question. And one thing I'll tell my class, and this is not a cop-out, but it depends. It depends on your category, your budget, and so forth. But going back to what I said before, it's not either or. It's not paid or organic. You have to do both. And this is one of the challenges of modern marketing. There's so much complexity. And again, you just can't say, let's go buy ads on Facebook and we're going to gain market share. And you also just can't say we're going to go add some content to our site and gain search. You have to do both. Ultimately what we say is there's two types of marketing strategies. The first strategy is harvesting existing demand for your category. And search is fantastic at this. So every day people go, and that's why Google is so massive. Every day people go to Google searching for your category. And so one strategy is, how do we appear at that point? And usually it's let's buy Facebook ads, and let's buy Google ads, and so forth. The other strategy is, how do you generate demand specifically for your brand? So there's one is harvesting existing demand for your category, which is fast and kind of easy. And I don't want to take that the wrong way, versus slowly building demand for your brand, which is slow. And and the analogy I use in my class is the turtle versus the hare. And the race between the rabbit. Ultimately, you need both, and that's where brand is so important, because if you invest in building brand equity, and I think brand equity is less about paid, it's definitely more about paid, owned, and earned. It's a lot about the customer experience. That allows your company to have more resilience, because brand becomes an asset. And I'm willing to spend a little bit more money for an iPhone than an Android. It's almost Samsung makes the chips in Apple, but because it's an Apple, they can charge so much more money. So I don't think it's paid versus organic. I think it's both. And you have to take a very holistic viewpoint and make it all fit together.
Got it. And I love that, how you kind of broke it down, two types of marketing strategies, right? So just to summarize for those in the audience. So one is harvesting existing demand. So we know what we want, right?
Yeah. Like, so
black shoes, black high heel shoes or something, right? Like,
and that's the art of, yes. And that's the art of paid search, organic, and so forth. And then building demand for your brand.
Just for you, like for a certain brand or name, right?
Yeah. And then in my opinion, channel strategy. So that's kind of marketing strategy. Channel strategy is there's thousands of ways of doing those two strategies. And so the art of marketing strategy is how do you create all these different channels and make them work together in such a way that you're either advancing number one or number two. And ultimately you need to do both, because number one is going to get you clicks and leads in the short term, but number two is going to allow you to build resilience and brand value in the long term. And then imagine doing that when you have finite budget, you have finite resources, and you have a very demanding boss and a teenager that just won't call you back all at the same time. And that is my life.
The juggle. Yeah. So for those of you in the audience, make sure you post your questions in the comments for Brad, because he, as you can slowly start to tell, right, he's a master at this. Lots of content, lots of knowledge and experience here. So post your comments post your questions in the comments so we can get those to Brad. I saw one Anne highlighted. When we do Facebook ads, will it work if we do it ourselves, or should we hire a professional? That's another thing. Yeah. At what point do we do something ourselves? And at what point do we decide to just hand it over to an expert?
I have a blog post I'm working on, and I don't know if it's 100% correct, but it poses the question, are ad agencies the new travel agencies? And so what I mean by that is 15 or 20 years ago, 25 years ago, if you wanted to book a flight to Tahiti, you couldn't book a flight yourself because, airfares, hotels in Tahiti, all that stuff, that information was guarded. It was secret. All these people called travel agents had it.
Yeah.
And then through digital, it was a democratization of airline rates and so forth. It brought costs down. And there are still travel agencies, don't get me wrong, but they're probably reserved for more affluent families that, et cetera, et cetera. So there's always going to be ad agencies. Don't get me right. But I see a lot of companies pay these agencies money to buy Facebook ads or to buy Google ads, and they'll charge a 20% commission. And literally all the work, which is optimization, is done by the algorithm on Facebook and done by the algorithm on YouTube. And, you have to, I think there's lots of skepticism with agencies, like what value am I getting? And too many agencies, and I've worked in the agency world my whole career, they're literally taking your money and then giving it to Mark Zuckerberg and then give me 20% for doing that. And so I'm passionate about the idea of you need to, before you start spending money, you need to have a plan. That said, I think there's a lot of things that companies used to give to agencies that they need to bring in-house. But there's lots of skepticism about P&Ls and so forth. And this is where I could go all day. It's changing so rapidly.
Yeah. Let's say we have a budget, right? We're in January 2021. Honestly, how do we set our budget? And then when we do have a budget, where should we be spending our marketing dollars? What will have a good ROI, you think, as we enter 2021?
So I definitely think spending the money on making a plan. I'm serious, because I cannot tell you how many people are well, let's redesign our website. Sales are down, no one's buying our products. Let's just redesign our website, and maybe that is right. But I actually worked with a company last week and well, how is that going to advance your business strategy? And then they literally paid this agency to redo the site. But the agency, and I also see this, there's lots of siloed thinking. Sometimes the web agency, they don't do conversion rate optimization, or the conversion rate optimization agency doesn't do search. They don't connect the dots. So I think that the most important thing is have a plan. And what is a measurement of success? what business outcomes. One of the things I tell my classes, whether you're internal or external, there's probably a boss. There probably is some gatekeeper that's approving the budget or that's scrutinizing what you do. And I said, before you start, understand what needs to happen for that person to be happy. Essentially, for that person to take you out for drinks and cheers to Fanny, because Fanny did this. I can't believe it, but I put this line in the sand and we exceeded it. Like, what is that thing? And that's probably related to the business strategy and the business goals. And once you understand that, then ask, is it realistic for us to affect that? And there are ways of mapping certain marketing activity to certain business outputs, but start with the plan.
And then look at measurements of success, and then whether it's a boss or a client or something, what it'll take to get that approval.
And not to plug myself, I got this digital marketing as an elephant where I go through all this. I have this PB Ghost plan. That's what I teach. I could go all day, but
we're definitely going to highlight that. I want people to know about that. So as we, my audience kind of cuts across a whole spectrum, right? From small business owners, solopreneurs, founders, independent coaches, to kind of mid-market, maybe 50 to 100 employees, maybe even 500 employees, and then all the way to enterprise level, right? Corporate professionals. And I'm sure for each one of those, there's a different strategy, right? And I would love to kind of hear from you. Let's start with small, right? If I'm a business owner or solopreneur, or just like an independent coach, right? What are some of the things I should consider for marketing in 2021, and any tips and advice you have for small business owners?
Well, I think one, I think we know this, and it's kind of a cop out, but you have to spend money to make money. And there's just there's no way around that. Like we said before, there's so much competition and whatnot. It's interesting. The AMA publishes, and I have the data, but they'll look at every year they survey businesses from, I think, $3 million in revenue up to $2 billion in revenue. And they'll break it down by industry, number of employees, amount of revenue generated, online versus offline. And they'll ask them, how much of your overall corporate business budget goes to marketing, or how much of your revenue goes to marketing? And unfortunately, sometimes the smaller you are, the more money you have to spend on marketing, because you're just not known. There's more competition. So, and it's hard to say, hey, here are the things you have to do for every single category. I would say for small businesses, no, it's really easy to lose money. I had someone last night, and they have an agency, and the agency will send them these decks with all this data of Facebook, CPMs and pay-per-click and so forth. And dude, we're not getting any business. And it looks like the agency's doing something. So I think number one is it's really easy to lose money. I'm assuming everyone has a website that's talking to us right now. Yeah. So the easiest thing is always look at your bounce rate.
Post your websites in the comments below. If you're a small business owner, share that in the comments.
But on your website, look at your bounce rate and benchmark it against your competition in your category, and look at your conversion rate. And one thing is just beat the benchmarks. So what is your
repeat that bounce rate? What else?
Bounce and conversion rate. Those are the two biggest, for the performance of your website. Your goal is to get bounce rate down. Bounce rate is the percentage of visitors that come to your site. I'm quoting Avinash Kashidik from Google. It's the number of people that come to your site, look around, literally vomit on their keyboard and leave. But no, it's people they come to your site, they don't click anything, they don't fill out a form, they just go. They go.
Yeah.
The average bounce rate is about 50%, maybe 45. If anyone says they have a bounce rate lower than 30, they're probably lying to you. And you can type in bounce rate benchmarks, whatever, and you'll find a bunch of studies. I have one client, they have 100,000 organic visitors every year. It's amazing, but they have an 86% bounce rate. So they built these pages full of content, so they're ranking organically beautifully. But because it's full of content, when you go there, it's confusing. And you have no idea where to, and they're just lost. So I think the first thing is like, look at your bounce rate and look at your conversion rate. And then 2 is test the waters. So you want to quickly, from a paid standpoint, establish your cost per lead. And the easiest way to get qualified traffic to your site is doing paid, even though I kind of like poo-pod Google. I mean, Google is massive. So look at your keywords and saying, okay, $5, if I pay Google $2 a click or $5 a click, I can get someone to my site, but can I actually get them to take whatever action I want them to take? And you do that for, depending upon your traffic, maybe 8 weeks, and you've established your cost per lead. And then the rest of the year, you're trying to get that cost per lead down. That alone, that's like 12 months of work to do it right. Your A/B testing, different content, all that stuff.
And if you're a small business owner, you're trying to research all of this yourself, right?
Yeah.
And learn it along the way, because if you're in the business of like shoes.
I mean, ultimately, business is competition. And if you want to grow, it's like, running a faster mile in the marathon or being a better basketball team. Like, it takes commitment. And if I said, well, winning the Super Bowl, it's just about diet and exercise. It is diet and exercise, but it's a lot of just practice and day in and day out and having that commitment. And so that's from a small business owner. Look at your bounce rate, look at your conversion rate, establish the cost per lead, and get that thing down.
Awesome. There we go. Website, bounce rate, conversion rate, cost per lead, and research keywords.
Yep.
So that's for small organizations. Now, what about medium? So we start to have, more of a marketing budget. We can maybe afford to hire an in-house marketing person, or maybe have like a monthly maintenance package, maybe with an agency. So what's your strategy and tips for medium-sized companies?
So all companies were at one time small companies. So the point is, all the stuff I said for a small company, you have to continue to do that as a medium-sized company and a big company. I think, we've heard lots about growth marketing and startups being nimble and so forth. That's not just for startups. That's for medium-sized businesses, and that's for large-scale businesses, like adopting this iterative agile approach. So all the stuff I said for small companies, medium-sized companies need to adopt as well. However, medium-sized companies, I think that's where you start really building your brand. So going back to there's the strategy of harvesting existing demand, and that's conversion rate optimization, that's cost per lead and so forth. I think medium-sized businesses, your revenue's growing, so therefore you have a bit more just raw numbers, money to spend on marketing. That's where you're starting to look at channels and activations that build your brand equity, what actually makes you top of mind. So if I think of black shoes, I think of Fanny shoes. Or if I think of hot sauce, I think of Tabasco and so forth. So now to do that, you have to break down silos in your organization. Even if there's one marketing person, I worked with so many where they're an island unto themselves.
Yeah.
No one talks to them. They're like the arts and crafts department. Meanwhile, right?
Yeah, those airy-fairy people in the marketing department, right?
Yeah. And meanwhile, business strategy is like going full steam, and there's all these conversations about how, as an organization, are we going to compete? And then you've got like the arts and crafts person there in the corner. And that's part of the strategy staircase. You've got to connect all those dots. If you're going to start competing, and you're going to by lowering your price, or you're going to start competing by having diversified services, that is a conversation to have with the marketing person. So I think for medium-sized businesses to really start building brand equity, you've got to break down silos, and it could be from between marketing and business strategy. It could be between sales and marketing. It could be between PR and the digital team. And it's tough, but we know, and there's studies I can show you, the best way to build brand equity is to have an integrated media campaign. And we've heard this paid, owned, and earned a lot. And everyone like, oh, that's an old term. I totally believe in that, paid, owned, and earned. But there's a difference between like, taking all the ingredients and just dumping them in the pan versus having a recipe and knowing when to turn on paid, when to turn on owned, and when to turn on earned. For larger agents, for larger companies, sometimes you have one agency that does paid and you have one agency that does earned, and then maybe owned as internal. And those people don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
So going back to the start of this, of what you said, it's all about collaboration. So medium-sized business, a lot of marketing, I think, is less what happens externally and more what happens internally at the organization.
Got it.
Yeah.
Which actually reinforces, again, like I love this, your strategy staircase, right? I can really see the integration across it all, and the importance of the integration across it all.
It all should be aligned. Yeah.
Yes. I want to take like a little detour real quick before we get to large organizations, because channels, platforms, like there's so many to choose from right now, right?
Yep.
I would love to like do a quick like back and forth with you, where I'm going to shout out a platform, and I would love to get your like 1 or 2 minutes, thoughts around each of these platforms.
Before we do, just imagine if we were like military commanders and you're like, okay, we want to win the war. I'm going to shout out different types of bullets. And you tell me like, is this bullet better to win the war than that bullet? Like, I can only, it depends. Like, is this guerrilla warfare? Are we in the jungle? Or like,
I'm going to throw it at you. This is your test of the day, Brad.
I love it. Right.
Okay. I saw one in the comments. Twitter. Your thoughts about Twitter and who should be using it?
This is going to be my answer for everything. It depends.
I refuse to accept the answer.
No, it's funny. We have, I'm working with a day trading platform. And so on day trading, Twitter's massive. And, we were like, hey, should we go in there and so forth? And a lot of it too is your company's risk tolerance. Because I think like to do Twitter right and to have there's a huge commitment. B, it's going to be a long time before you see results. It's probably escaping me. There are probably some categories where Twitter is perfect. But I think you do Twitter after you've got your cost per lead down, you've got conversions where they need to be, and the bounce rate where it needs to be. So many people are just so anxious, like, well, our market is not performing well. Let's go on Twitter. And that's like saying, we're not winning the war, so let's change the type of bullets we fire.
What are generally the audience on Twitter that you've noticed?
I mean, I think it's changing. I think the political, it's a lot of news. It is a huge amount of news, but there are definitely like legitimate subcultures around like, there's lots of B2B tech. There's lots of legitimate B2B tech conversations that are rich and they're happening, and they're like prolific with hashtags and so forth. And that goes with, listening. Nothing, at the end of the day, all that strategy staircase, it's all built on customer understanding. Yeah. So it's like fish where the fish are. I wish I could say, hey guys, here's the plan. Like, here's your business, here's the marketing plan. And like, that's the work. It's not that simple.
No. What about Facebook?
I think Facebook is extraordinary and it's massive. And I think it's still very much, there's still
is it still relevant? Do you still feel Facebook is relevant?
So that's what I was saying earlier. There's a fragmentation. And I think sometimes as just people, we want these simple answers like Facebook or Twitter. And like the answer is you have to do all of it, right? Like, again, it's like, do I do diet or do I do exercise? And like, you do both. Like, you have to do all of it. So,
but we have only finite time.
Agreed. And so, and ultimately, like I told, every company wants to grow. Growth requires resources, and resources are finite. So that's where you have to be very strategic in where you invest your dollars. And so many people are like, well, let's just buy Facebook ads. And dude, Facebook ads are perfect for certain type of companies. They're great for direct-to-consumer kind of impulse buys where you don't even care what the brand is. It's like, dude, binoculars made out of fuzzy dice. I'm gonna buy one.
Yeah.
Like it's great for like impulse buys. But like if you're trying to build something like with brand equity and like no one's gonna buy a 5,000 pair of like, I don't know, Rolex watch from a Facebook ad.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Got it. Instagram.
Huge. Awesome.
Mm.
I mean, I think it's fascinating how important design has become this equity. This
We're such visual creatures, right?
yes.
We want to
You guys
see beautiful things. Like,
does everyone want to hear a quick cool story? Like,
let's do it.
So there's this amazing book called The Substance of Style. I forget her name. She's actually from Dallas, and it's all about, there's that saying that's, style is only skin deep. And she's like, no, style has this huge economic imperative that people don't understand. This is written like 15 years ago. And at the time, she was talking about the difference between Target and Walmart, or like Apple and Microsoft. Like, Target and Apple were these beautiful design brands. Anyhow, she talked to the story about Afghanistan and the fall of the Taliban. So I'm getting political here. Taliban, they like restricted all of these freedoms and so forth. So when Taliban left, there was this expectation that the first thing the people of Afghanistan was going to do is they would like build libraries, or they would build courts, or they would build like all these hallmarks of democracy. No, first thing they did, it was like beauty salons. It was it was places to like express yourself.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's this core innate human need of design. It's how we like, is that poison or not poison? So I think Instagram is the perfect culmination of like our society is just becoming more and more visual. And I can get like really heady really quick. We're just becoming visual creatures.
We are.
And our language and it's a fantastic, but it's also very global. I think we all take for granted how you can like upload a picture and then your friend in Poland likes it, and then someone in Japan. I think it's still amazing that it happens. I think it's a fantastic platform.
Two more real quick.
Yeah.
Clubhouse, right? That's like this new.
Oh, that's the invite
right now. The audio. Yes. Have you tried it yet?
I am not cool enough. I know people have. I'm that guy. I do know that audio is becoming more and more relevant.
Podcast,
and there's
Well,
there's a whole thing of how for search engine optimization, now you want to win the answer box. That's where it's like the 0-click search. If you type in black shoes, Google will give you that answer. And apparently that's all to train their algorithms in natural language, because everything is going to become voice.
Wow.
You've heard the stats, like 25% of searches are now voice searches. So the fact that we have,
because we're asking Siri, like,
all that.
Yeah.
So like for me and you, maybe doing voice search is weird. Like for my daughters, it's like, dude, why wouldn't you do it? It's so second nature.
I watch my son, like, I can't answer a question and he'll like immediately go, "Hey Siri," and then he'll ask Siri.
Yeah.
I called up Siri now.
It's fascinating how quickly the generations are changing. But anyhow, I think Clubhouse is the tip of the iceberg with audio, and we're going to see more and more of it. And there's a woman I work with at SMU, and she has a class teaching audio information architecture, and like how do you design the interface from an audio standpoint when you're like, "Hey Siri, what's a good pizza brand?" And it's actually, I mean, there's logic there. So I'm not cool enough for.
Very fascinating. And then last, LinkedIn. Your thoughts of LinkedIn?
I love LinkedIn. I think everyone says it's
Siri, right?
What's that?
That was Siri, wasn't it?
Oh, it's Siri. I know. She's eavesdropping. I think business is the dominant institution on earth, and if we're going to make it out, it's going to be people being smarter business people. And the way to be a smarter business person is to collaborate and learn and see what your colleagues are doing. I think LinkedIn is a fantastic platform for that. And like any of the classic social media stuff, like you have to give value to the community and all that.
Absolutely.
And apparently, like, you can still get a lot of, if you do good organic content, you'll get benefits. So I think it's great.
Yeah. I mean, LinkedIn for Business still my obviously favorite platform. Yeah.
And there's like legitimate like celebrities. Like I see stuff from Richard Branson that's like really thoughtful, and he probably obviously has someone there. But the fact that like they're investing in that platform, I think it's fantastic. It's like it's great.
So going back to our marketing strategy, like let's finish off with, so now for enterprise level corporations, right? Thousands of employees, big brands. I mean, you serve them as well, right? Like,
Yep.
where should they be looking towards and planning towards and evaluating?
So, similar to all global enterprises were at one time a small or medium-sized business. So
Mm-hmm.
similar to work to adopt a lot of like the performance marketing of a startup or a small company.
Yeah.
And then certainly this internal digital transformation of getting people to talk to each other. I mean, you think it's hard to get, when you have 100 employees or 50 employees, imagine 500,000 employees.
Yeah.
Or not 500, whatever that's. But the two big trends is everyone knows about customer journey mapping, but I'm seeing this thing now. It's called service mapping, where it's the same rigor that you do for customer journey mapping pre-purchase, you apply it post-purchase. And I think larger organizations are realizing at the end of the day, just like we said, a happy customer is the best marketing. And so how do you ultimately, marketing is about creating happy customers. How do you create happy customers in a sustained way for a $3 billion company? And so that's where service journey comes. And so that's looking at what happens the moment someone buys the product, all the way to the time the person says, dude, you've got to buy this $500,000 ERP system, or dude, this is the right hospital equipment, and so forth. So I think that's actually a brand new thing in the consulting world called service journey mapping. The other thing is content is the fuel of marketing, and content, there's a complexity. So if you're this massive company and you've got version controls and so forth. So I'm also seeing more trend toward this internal digital solution called digital asset management, or DAM. And it's almost like a content management system for all of an organization's internal content pieces. And a good analogy is that if you go into a Walmart, there is a system of like where soup goes and where, shoes go. And so if you have one stock person, it's not like when their shift ends, another stock person comes in and says, I'll put the soup with the oil, or I'll put this. Like there's a standardization.
Yeah.
Also, like when things are expired, so content gets expired. And so seeing more and more organizations adopt these larger organizations adopting these digital asset management systems, which ultimately is a horizontal, because content, you've got public relations, you've got sales, you've got e-com and so forth. And oftentimes they have different digital repositories, which creates its own headache, its own blah, blah, blah. So there's these systems where they'll connect the dots between everything. There's also learning efficiencies and so forth. So service design and digital asset management systems.
Folks,
I got one more.
Tons of things to unpack here, but we are almost, we're getting to the end of the show, and I wanted to make sure that people know how to reach you, Brad. So I wanted to pull up your two websites. Tell us what we can find when we go to digitalmarketingisAnelephant.com and 10louder.com.
Right. So digitalmarketingisAnelephant.com is a 90-minute, it's one of my classes from SMU where I lay out a 8-step framework for for strategy. And I guarantee at the end of that 90 minutes, you'll know how to put together what I consider holistic digital marketing strategy that connects business strategy to brand strategy to marketing strategy and so forth. It's free. I also teach a class online. I now teach it online, and but you have to pay for that, but that's free. And then 10 Louder is my consulting company.
Awesome. Yeah. So there's so much to learn. Definitely reach out to Brad and check out those websites. Now, I really wanted to kind of like real quick get 2 quick tips for you. This is something new that I want to do this year, because I think a lot of content should be created for our heads, and then also content for our hearts. And so I would love to get a tip from you real quick. What's a great tactical tip for us to implement that will feed our heads? And then what is an inspirational thing that you'd like to say for our hearts as we move forward?
So I think a tip for the head is, and this is a big one, that soft skills are as important, if not more important, than hard skills. and especially when we talk about collaboration, especially when we talk about connecting the dots, soft skills like collaboration is a big word. How do you diffuse a tense conversation among colleagues? Or how do you make someone who doesn't feel listened, who has really good ideas, how do you get them to trust to actually contribute? So that's for the heart, for the head. That's kind of for the heart. And for the heart, I have actually been, I think since the pandemic, but making a practice of it, meditating. And it's much more like a mental health type thing. And you'll see lots of high performers and so forth. But I'm a big fan of this author. He wrote Sapiens, Yuval Harari Naral. Someone may know that book, Sapiens, but he has a book called 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. And the 21st lesson is like, take care of your own mind. And in this crazy world with Instagram and all the stuff we talked about and so forth, at least for me, I think for a lot of other people that try to do more with less, taking time out every day just to be in the moment and grounded and just feel very fortunate just to be breathing. Because I think every day is a gift and it's a crazy freaking world. And I saw a doctor said, like, if you're alive, then 2020 was a good year. So that's,
yes. We'll set our bar low.
Yeah.
I'm alive. Yay.
I know. I mean,
yes, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Thank you, Brad. I mean, we could easily talk for hours and still be going, but thank you for your time. And I do want to promote a few quick things right now as far as events. One for all the IT professionals out there that are in my audience, the Association of Business Technology Professionals. I saw Chuck in the comments and Mike Rochelle in the comments. They are our president as well as the head of our business technology networking group. Tuesday, January 26th, we are going to have our guest David Glazier from Infotech, which is very similar to like Gartner, a great research company. And he's going to talk all about emerging trends in technology. So go to www.abtpdfw.org and register for that. It will be virtual, so it will be free, and I will be broadcasting live on my channel as well from it. So tune in on January 26th for that. And then Brad, as a board member of American Marketing Association, why don't you tell us about this event?
Next, mark your calendars. Next Wednesday, January 27th, we're going to be having Iris Diaz, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of the Dallas Mavericks, talk about how some of the challenges that the NBA and the Dallas Mavericks and maybe Mark Cuban had to go through to pivot in COVID-19. It is virtual as well, but that is our first monthly luncheon. So January 27th at 12 p.m. and go to amadfw.com for more information.
Absolutely. Speaking of Dallas Mavericks, next week, my guest on the show is going to be from the International Association of Venue Management. These are all the folks that look after all the stadiums, all the conference centers, all the venues, big venues across the US, and definitely impacted with COVID. But they have a conference coming up talking about how to improve guest services and guest experiences at venues. So they will be my guests, Mark Herrera, as well as his associates at International Association of Venue Management. So they will be my guests next Thursday. So you'll definitely want to tune in for that, especially to see when we can go back to watching all these amazing events, right? The sense of community.
How great it's going to be when we can actually just hang out together in the same room and
we would treasure it so much more.
I know.
Every moment. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Happy New Year. Fanny, thank you. Fanny, thank you for this.
New Year. Thank you for your time, Brad. Yes. Thank you, Anne, who has been off the charts in the comments. Isn't she wonderful, folks? Drop a heart for Anne in the comments in there. And thank you, Jason Hopper, Lawrence, Chuck, Yolanda, Rashida, all of you that I see in the comments. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for tuning in. And as I say, throughout every show. Make sure you shine your light, share your message with the world, and if it floats your boat, do it through video. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Brad.
Everybody, Happy New
Tune
Year.
in next week.